Agri SA is calling on government to establish a National Drought Management System. The group says while monetary losses have been reported because of the drought, it's too early to call on authorities to declare a national disaster. Well, let's discuss this further. I'm joined by Agri SA's Deputy Director, Christo van der Rheede. Christo, thank you so much for your time tonight. Interesting that you're saying not yet time for a national disaster, but we have been hearing from different formations within the farming sector who are saying that in certain areas, they certainly believe that it's warranted for a disaster to be declared. I wonder then what your take on that is.
No, absolutely. We're in full agreement of that perspective because we have had a drought declaration in the Eastern Cape. We're waiting for a disaster to be declared in the Northern Cape and also parts of the Western Cape. Remember, we cannot declare this a national drought disaster because we still await good summer rains in the summer rainfall areas. If those rains are not coming, then we're certainly going to have.
Experts are telling us that South Africa is fundamentally facing a water management problem that is exacerbating what would be normal or slightly out of the ordinary drought conditions. How much of that statement do you think is true?
We fully agree. Remember, South Africa is a very dry country. It's one of the driest countries in the world. But our farmers have managed to produce some of the best food in the world at the cheapest price. So we are relatively food secure. But every second or third year, and that impacts on our food production system, and it impacts very negatively. But at the same time, we really want to appeal to government to manage our water systems properly. There is no justification for our cities to remain dependent on our 21 catchment areas. We've got a massive sea. We need to think of desalination to bring water from the sea into bigger cities so that our water systems can exclusively be utilized for agricultural purposes as well as industrial purposes.
What has changed if outside of just the changing weather conditions? So from a management perspective, what has changed over the years that you think is exacerbating or making the situation worse than it should actually be? What is government not doing that it was doing before, or what has led to this problem?
I think there's a number of reasons for that. One, municipalities are failing in their duty to make sure that they do not pollute our water systems. If you look at the Vaal River system, it's in serious crisis. So municipalities have to up their game when it comes to that. We've also seen, and we know that the Department of Water Affairs haven't played their role in the past, and that in itself poses a serious threat to our water system. And then mining. Mining has a serious impact on our catchment areas. That's why we oppose fracking in the Karoo. We oppose mining in our catchment areas, because once you damage or pollute our catchment areas, then it will have devastating impact for water users that depend on those catchment areas.
It sounds like a conflation of multiple issues really that are meeting at the worst time possible. When it comes then to this master plan that we've been told about by the Water and Sanitation Department, what would it need to include?
Many farmers have already adapted smart agricultural practices. They manage their water properly, and they utilize the latest irrigation systems. So there's a big drive within the agricultural system to really conserve water and to make sure that we do not exacerbate the current situation. But what we need our entire government system to sit down and work in collaboration with the agriculture community to protect our water systems, to make sure that we put effective distribution measures in place, and that we do not exploit our water system to the extent that we have very little water left for our ordinary people out there.
These problems, of course, have also come at a great cost to the sector, not just by means of production, but also when we look at the overall labor force in the agricultural sector and what that does then even for the kind of revenue and turnover that farmers can expect. Speak to us about that.
No, certainly. Remember, you've got two systems in South Africa when it comes to food production. Dry land food production, and they depend entirely on rains. And then on the other hand, you've got irrigators, in other words, farmers that utilize water from rivers. They irrigate their veld or their fields. So what we've seen, drought on the one hand has impacted devastatingly on dry land production. So much so that during the drought in 2016, we've halved our maize production from 16 million tons to approximately 7.5 million tons. And once you've got a shortage of maize production, it has a devastating impact on the entire food system because your animal, your livestock, your poultry, they thrive or they live on maize. If you have to import maize, it has an inflationary impact on pricing of maize. And maize is a staple feed for almost the entire value system. At the same time, if you can't irrigate your orchards, we've seen orchards dying out in the Oudtshoorn area. That has, again, an impact on your exports. So the country cannot earn foreign exchange. And that in itself has an impact on employment. And we've seen a drastic rise in unemployment within the agriculture sector.
It's certainly not good news, Christo. We've run out of time, but it's a story. On to the cause that you as Agri SA have been making, especially when it comes to providing support, the financial support and the fodder support for those farmers that have found themselves in dire straits as a result of these conditions. Christo van der Rheede, he's the Deputy Director at Agri SA. So then after the break, we take a look at the looming over 900 are anticipated to lose their what their plans are in the wake of that news. This is News at Prime.